We're going to discuss the University of Texas Longhorns. They are the second best team in the SEC from the 2024 football season. Now, if you're wondering why you didn't see University of Tennessee video up there, I have covered Tennessee quite extensively, and I have a playlist of the 2024 SEC college football teams. So you can go back there and look at that video. But the other UT, and that's what it's always going to be to me, the other UT had a really good season for a first year in the SEC. Actually, they had a really good season no matter what conference they were in. So we're going to discuss their season. We're not going to discuss Quinn Ewers specifically. We're going to talk about him in the offense, but I'm going to actually talk a little bit more about Arch Manning be in the quarterback section, which I don't always have, but Arch got to play, got to start, and he is going to be their head quarterback, their QB1 next year. So let's get into it.
This is Paul for Redneck Sports. I believe that everybody should win in life, or at least attempt to. The first three maxims of General Robert Nealon's game maxims, I believe apply to everybody. The team that makes the fewest mistakes will win. Play for and make the breaks. When one comes your way, score. If at first the game or the breaks go against you, don't let up. Put on more steam. Welcome to the channel. Now let's discuss some sports.
What we're going to discuss is their record for last year. Started out slaughter of Colorado State, wasn't even fair. Then the Michigan game, which really wasn't fair. UTSA, not fair. UL Monroe, not even an inkling. Mississippi State, yeah, not even. Red River rivalry. Oklahoma went into that game ranked. It was bad. Then they lost badly to Georgia. Kind of hurt them, but okay. They had a really close one against Vandy because, well, Vandy was doing some wild things last year. Florida was just not even a fair game. Arkansas was actually far closer than most people thought it would be. Arkansas was far better than most people considered. Then they had the Wildcats of Kentucky, and that was not a fair fight. Texas A&M, that rivalry, Lone Star rivalry right there. That one was closer than some people thought it would be, but simple fact of Texas A&M was an amazing team. Then gets to the SEC championship. They lose a far closer one to Georgia. Then they beat around Clemson, but that was actually Clemson was actually a decent team in that game. Then they beat Arizona State, took two overtimes to do it. Arizona State's another one of those teams. People kept talking, oh, well, they aren't. They were good. People just weren't realizing it. Then they got beat by Ohio State in for Ohio State, a decent game. They fought Ohio State really decently. It was 28-14 loss, but it's a pretty good game. So this is not an embarrassing record by any stretch of the imagination. I know normally that I would have covered Quinn Ewers, or because he's not going to be there next year, I just throw him into the offense. Well, we got to see some games with Arch Manning. Uh, he's not that bad of a quarterback. He completed 61 of 90 passes. had 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and compared to Jalen Milroe, that's far better than had 939 yards on passing. So good quarterback. Now, he also rushed 25 times for 108 yards for 4 touchdowns. Here's a guy who is getting developed into a dual threat quarterback. He is a combination of both of his uncles. His own father is not a his own father was a wide receiver. So that's the thing that you have to look at. So he's got that running ability of his father, but at the same time, he's also got that Peyton Manning ability to throw, but that versatility of Eli, which also came from his namesake, Archie Manning. All of this is some. Next year is going to be interesting. Let's just put it that way. Next year is going to be interesting for this offense. I mean, Quinn Ewers, good quarterback, don't get me wrong. But when you're looking down through there, Quinn Ewers had 2 rushing touchdowns and actually had negative yardage, whereas Arch had 25 rushes, 108 yards with with an average 4.3 and a long of 67. Arch is going to be much more versatile for this team. Slightly better percentage of or completion percentage, but you know, in both games that Arch was in, they won. So I think Arch Manning's going to be doing really good for Texas next year. Okay, let's start discussing the offense. Now, Quinn Ewers himself, he threw for 31 touchdowns and got intercepted 12 times. I don't like the interception count, but the touchdowns that he threw, that was really good. Completion, 293 for 445. That's 65.8%. He's a decent quarterback. He's going to make a good backup in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be a QB1 in the NFL. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm just saying that that's the way it looks. Rushing yards. The best rusher was Quintrevion Wisner, 1,064 yards. Receiving yards, Matthew Golden, 987. Uh, Wisner had 5 touchdowns. Jaden Blue had 134 rushes, 730 yards. Now, you take a look at Wisner had 226 carries, 1,064. Jaden Blue had 134 on 730 for 730. Here's the thing: Jaden Blue had 8 touchdowns, fewer carries. Wisner was a good guy to get in there, but he wasn't able to make the right moves at the right time. He had a long of 43, whereas Blue had a long of 77. They were both needed. Okay, I'm not saying that they weren't both needed. I'm just saying that's the case. Garrett Gibson, 4 touchdowns. Arch Manning, like I said earlier, 4 touchdowns rushing. Uh, Isaiah Bond had 1 touchdown. Ryan Niblett, wide receiver, had 1 touchdown. Silas Bolden, another wide receiver, had a touchdown, and Quinn Ewers had the 2, as I said earlier. Matthew Gold, 58 receptions, had 9 touchdowns. Gunnar Helm, 60-7. Isaiah Bond, 34-5. Ryan Wingo, 29-2. DeAndre Moore Jr. had 39-7. Jaden Blue had 42-6. And he's a running back. Quintervion Wisner actually had 44-1. Silas Bolden, 23-1. Jonte Cook, the second, 8-2. So if you take a look at this, was a spread out offense. This was an offense that had many weapons to choose from. They had an offensive line that was holding. This is what you would expect from a team of that level. And Lord, did they show out. And that's just it. They weren't hurting for weapons. This is why Texas was as powerful as they were last year on the offensive side. So that's the offense. Now, take a look at the defense. Now, tackles, Anthony Hill Jr., linebacker, had 113 tackles. Interceptions, Jade Barron had 5 interceptions. So this was if you take a look at the numbers, these were folks that were spread out enough. Yes, Anthony Hill Jr. had the 113. He had 8 sacks. Trey Moore had 36 tackles with 5.5 sacks. Colin Simmons had 9 sacks. Now, if you take a look at interceptions, Ethan Burke only had 1 interception. That 1 interception got a touchdown. He also had 27 tackles. So they only had the one, but they had interceptions. I mean, you take a look at Jade Brown and Andre Makuba. Both had 5 interceptions. Both of them did. Now, Makuba had 69 tackles. Jade Brown had 67. And Jade Barron, I'm sorry. Jade Barron had also more yards off of interceptions than Makuba did. This is the kind of team that they had. They didn't have their defense was pretty spread out. Like, and I'm not talking about spread out as they couldn't handle it. They were handling it. Yeah, they had a little bit of problem there towards the end, but you take a look at how they started the year and they were able to keep up that production throughout the entire year. They did what they had to do to shut down most of the teams out there. They had people like Anthony Hill, Michael Taffy, Mukaba, Barron, LaFau, Kabinda, Gilbo, Collins, Simmons, Sorrell, Broughton. I mean, you take a look down through here, these are names that you should be hearing in the NFL. That's the kind of players these are. Anthony Hill, especially, should be considered for that. Mukaba, Barron, yes. So you're taking a look at this roster and you're seeing future NFL players. All of them contributed. And I mean, you take a look at the sacks of these guys: 8, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 9, 6, 4, 5.5, 2.5, 1. That's just it. This was a talented defensive team as well. So, yeah. Okay. 2024 was a great year for Texas. They're back to where they should be at. Yes, this is where they should be at. Texas is under Sark has turned into the Texas of old. They had a few down years, but they are back to where they should be at for Texas. Now, next year is going to be a far more interesting year. They start out against Ohio State. They are going to Ohio State. Yeah. Then they play San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston. Okay, no big deal. They're going to the swamp to play Florida. Now, this is a resurgent Florida team. I'm not saying that Florida should be able to beat them, but DJ Lagway, Napier, yeah, this is going to be they have to show up year. And also, DJ Lagway is really good. Then you take a look at They've got a neutral site Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. Hey, Oklahoma has to do something next year. If this is a bad game, you can just say, hey, Venables is going to be gone. Then they're going to Kentucky at Mississippi State. Okay, Vandy's coming to them. Eh. Then they're going between the hedges to Georgia. Georgia's got both U or has got both UTs in a year. That is just a 2 years in a row, both UTs. Oh, and Alabama. But Georgia is, yeah, they've got Texas coming between the hedges. That game, in all honesty, I would love to have the ability to go to that game. Seriously. Uh, Arkansas is coming to them. Not really worried about it. Texas A&M is coming to them. Mike Elko's building a dangerous team. I would say, looking at this schedule, Ohio State, Florida, Georgia, and Texas A&M, you might be going, well, okay, that's only 4 teams. Those 4 teams are exceedingly scary. Those 4 teams could destroy Texas the season for Texas. But I think they've got the team to be able to handle it. 2024 was amazing for the Longhorns. And so you need to remember that and realize that Steve Sarkisian is probably one of the better coaches out there right now. So this has been Paul with Redneck Sports. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.
Thank you for watching this video. I've had fairly good success with all of my redneck sports stuff, and I hope you enjoyed the topic. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, all that rigmarole, and also just let me know what you want to hear about. I'll give a redneck spin to this stuff. Let me tell you, I love sports, so I love people that want to join me in that. This has been Paul with Redneck Sports. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.